Okay, good evening. Go ahead and call our Tuesday, July 26, 2016 meeting to order at 7 o'clock. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks for everybody for being here this evening. We will begin with the approval of the minutes from our regular meeting on June 27th, 2016. Are there any additions, omissions, or revisions? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. What was that again? The board has been distributed the minutes, and the board reviews the minutes. Right, I mean the board.
You don't approve the minutes, we do. Because we have to approve the minutes at a meeting.
We're debating about putting them out there as a draft copy ahead of the meeting. It has been the historical past practice of the board that we check it for the accuracy of the record and then publish them after that fact. We don't want them necessarily put out there with incorrect information or typos, which is why we go through the process. But we're certainly looking at doing that as a draft ahead of time to give everyone else an idea, too, what was discussed at the meeting. But the actual final approval of the minutes is the responsibility of the board.
However, drafts are public records.
Well, that's what we're attempting to work on right now.
Yeah, you can request them as well.
We're going to, right, it's in writing, and we reviewed it and everything. There's not been historically, no. But yeah, certainly that doesn't mean that what happened, the last meeting happened in a vacuum. It's typically discussed, and like I said, it's accessible. But we're looking at ways continuously to make things transparent, which then we've been doing for a long time. So. Well, there hasn't been two people in a meeting in the last 7 months, so that's a little bit different. Yeah, I think it's wonderful. No, it makes two of us, unfortunately. Okay, any additions, omissions, or revisions?
I have none. I make a motion to approve the minutes of the June 27th, 2016 meeting.
I second.
You have to approve it, too, since I was not here.
And I approve.
Okay. Moving on, then, to the hearing of the public. If anyone has anything to say, to approach the podium, give your name and address for the board.
My name's John Ellis. I live at 6212 Woodville. I'd like to follow up on what they just said. I think it was 2 months ago that I suggested to this group that you publish a draft of the minutes. And I realize that apparently they're available if I do a freedom of information, but I shouldn't have to do that. There's absolutely no reason, like these people said who weren't here last time, that we can't see a draft of the minutes and see if they're accurate. And while we're at it, you folks are recording these meetings. Is there any reason why those aren't published? Is there any reason why those aren't put on YouTube? Or do I have to do a Freedom of Information Act for that? Because frankly, I'd like to roll back and kind of go over some of the things that some of you have said.
Yeah, a valid point. Yeah, I think we're going to get the drafts out as a matter of just the workflow to get it onto the website. In terms of the video,
you obviously have them typed up, so I don't
right.
see what the big deal is to post them and just say draft at the top. Is that an issue?
No, I mean sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're not completely finished right up until the meeting. It depends on.
Okay, and I understand
like that.
that.
So it might not be a lot of notice before it. I can't say it's going to be posted 2 weeks before the meeting.
I understand, but frankly, it doesn't seem like it should be a big deal to have them posted this morning, so that those of us who would like to review them and kind of refresh our memories on what happened at the last meeting, which was, I guess, a month ago. Yeah. I think that'd be good. And then, what can I do to get copies of this video posted? Do I have to do a Freedom of Information with you?
Yeah, we can give you a CD, or we can actually. I think we can provide a link by email as well.
Okay, I'd like to do that, and I'd like to start posting these because I think those of you who don't attend these meetings, I think you'd like to.
And Daryl Wacker with the drummer, he publishes them a lot.
I know you've published at least one of them. That was when we had some discussion here at the dais. But okay, I'll be back in touch.
Okay, thanks. Yes.
Rodney Childs. I live at 6495 Land's End Court, and we're here with Harold Scanlon, and we have several questions. First of all, I looked through several of your last minutes because I wasn't able to attend all your meetings. Question, what money is spent for the police department, and what money is spent for the police department, and what is needed for the increase? Is it equipment, people, increased pays? If you could answer that question, it would be appreciated.
In terms of what's the reason basically for the budget deficit in the police department?
No, you're proposing to change the 10 mil max to a higher level. Maybe I'm assuming too much, but I presume it's to increase the amount of money for the police department.
Right. I'm sorry, go ahead.
So currently you say you're spending 1.9 million. 1 million comes out of our levy, and 440,000 comes out of the Miller Lane program, which leaves us shortfall. Your proposed increase, which I don't know what it is, so the question is, between the shortfall of 1.5 million, what you need from the monies out of the income coming from the Miller Lane, what is that money needed for, that extra money?
Well, it's not necessarily a lot of extra. It's more or less to stop the transfers from out of the general fund. And at the police department funded by levies, it's solely funded.
Well, it's almost 25. It's almost 25%. Well, 50% of the $1 million levy. So I wouldn't say it's not a lot of money.
Well, and we can go through the actual budget when we talk about the levy here in a little while to get down into the weeds.
So will you answer that question then? I'll hold it.
Oh yeah, no, we'll most definitely discuss that.
Then my second question is, when the township lost property to territory to Union, it was about, I think, 1/3 of the total territory of the township, if I remember correctly. We service that with our police department. And I was wondering, with the loss of that territory, do we still service the area? Are we charging for that? Or if we're not, what happened to the additional cost?
The city of Union services all areas within their city limits.
So then my second question is, what happened to that change in cost?
Well, the unfortunate thing about the cost is it's one particular area of the township. That area really doesn't require as large of a response as the other areas of our township. So much of the cost to patrol our township goes to the other areas of the township. Until recently, that area was rural and completely undeveloped. And recently, I'd say about, 5 years since Union annexed it, they added their industrial base. So it had been within the city of Union before. So the current cost of our police department, was prior to Union building the large P&G terminal there.
So you don't know the answer, is what I'm saying. I'm hearing you don't know what the change in cost was.
Well, I think as far as what we lost from property tax revenue was negligible, plus via the type of annexation, we're still receiving money from people now that are in Union being serviced by Union, but because of the state law, there's still tax monies coming here. But in terms of that total, I don't have it handy. We could get it, but in the grand scheme of the budget, it didn't affect us that much.
Okay.
Can I ask you a question? Did you say 1/3 of the township?
That's my understanding.
No, it's not even close.
It's not close.
So how much was it?
Oh, I would say negligible as far as
How much
the
was
overall. Yeah, I don't know what the acreages are, but we could find out. But
I'd like to know.
I'll say 10%.
I'd like to know. Okay, thank you. Who's going to pay the township for the roads that are being damaged by the increased traffic of semis and heavy-duty construction trucks? We see the roads by us really severely being damaged over the last couple of years. And I know when I lived in another state, we had limitations on what could be going across those roads in the spring, because we know spring causes a lot of major issues with heavy trucks. But I don't know if there's any limitations here. But we do see the roads being severely damaged. Who's paying for that?
Well, it depends what road it is. I mean, if it's a township road, the township's responsible for it. If it's a county road, the county is responsible for it.
Okay, so like say, for example, Frederick between Peters Pike and National, who's paying for that?
That's
the
a
county.
County
That's
road.
county. And the side roads are all local?
For the most part, right?
Most of the truck traffic has been directed on the county roads. However, I will say, we've had issues with township roads, and one of the problems that we have is our state annexation laws are really unfavorable toward townships. The city of Union has annexed many properties to where they annexed it not to the center line of the road, but before the road. So that property will be annexed in the city of Union until you get the road, which leaves the township with the responsibility of maintaining the road in that area.
Oh, okay.
So it's a battle that we're fighting, that we've dealt with for the past, since before I was here on this board. And it's a battle that is dealt with not just at the local level, but dealing with the county and dealing with the state legislature, because the annexation laws are written very, very poorly in favor of townships.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that answer.
And I'll
Appreciate
point
it.
out that we have fought those laws to the point where we've taken them to the Supreme Court.
Okay. I know you lost. I read some of those rulings.
Yes.
Why hasn't the township developed a 2017 budget before $8 million was approved? That was in your minutes of May 23rd.
Let's keep in mind that, once again, the budget issues that we're having in this township right now are not based on the fact that there's been mismanagement or anything going on. What's happened here is being experienced by almost every municipality and township in the state of Ohio. And it's several different things, including the tangible personal property taxes being eliminated, not coming to us anymore, the estate taxes being eliminated in the state of Ohio and not coming to us anymore, and the local government fund not coming to us anymore. That is basically being utilized by the state government it was used primarily to eliminate that $8 billion shortfall that was created by the state prior
It doesn't.
to. But the point is that, based on that, we lost almost $1 million worth of revenue.
But it doesn't answer my question.
I didn't
My question is why,
stated, I didn't.
yes, my question was why hasn't the 2017 budget been developed yet?
Well, I believe Eric is in the process, but you said something about $8 million. That's the part I didn't.
Well, your minutes said 8 minutes was approved by, I don't have the minutes in front of me.
I'm sorry, what was approved? $8 million?
8 million. It was in the minutes.
He's talking about
No, that was,
No. You got the minutes?
I'm not sure what he's talking about.
You made a motion to say $8 billion for the sheriff for
5 years.
Okay, it didn't come out that way in the minutes, though.
Oh, yeah, it was.
It just said $8 million.
Oh, okay. It was
Kind of an open checkbook.
Yeah, we have an open checkbook, but it's not that big.
Well, still my question is, why hasn't the budget been developed yet?
It's going to be developed. It's going to be, when does it come? You've
It's
got
in
the
the
calendar,
process.
right?
We're working on it right now, along with the Budget Commission. We're preparing the budget and looking at.
Okay. In addition to that, in your last minutes, June 8 minutes, the question was asked right here. Mr. Brusky, is that how it's pronounced? Voted to approve to spend $8 million when there is not a budget for next year. She doesn't say what for or anything, just voted to approve
No,
$8
what they're
million.
referring to was we were looking into contracting our police services with the sheriff's department in an effort to potentially save money. That was over a 5-year period. Back up to many of the meetings. If you take a look at, we'll get you all the minutes that we can.
Well, that's okay. Maybe this would be helpful. Why maybe we had minutes a little earlier for this one, and we could bring up questions. But the key item, whoever edited this one didn't explain very well what this $8 million was for in this particular meeting.
Right.
That might have been within a comment, maybe.
Pardon?
That may have been listed under a comment from someone.
It just said, Mr. Brusky voted to approve to spend $8 million when there's not a budget for next year. Verbatim. Okay, Jen, my next question is, I hope I'm not boring everybody here, but my next question is why haven't you developed a 5-year budget? Now, I've been in business a long time, for many years, and I had to develop budgets for forecasting that, and I know it's a tough deal. But still, it was part of the thing that you did in the past. For some reason, you stopped doing it. I don't know why. Do you have an answer to that?
I don't know. We used to do 5-year budgets. I don't know when they stopped.
Well, why aren't you doing it?
I don't know.
Well, I think the easier answer is that a lot of times the departments will go through and budget out their own 5-year plans, especially for capital purchases and things like that.
Correct.
Most of our expense, of course, are personnel, and that we pretty much know based upon collective bargaining contracts what those increases are going to be.
Well, if that's true, then why is there about $450,000 shortfall in the police department right now?
Yeah, there has been for some time, which is why we've been transferring money out of the general fund to support the police department.
Okay, but if you don't publish, I went last year, I went in to find out what your 2016 budget was, and I'll tell you, it was about that thick of pages that had, thank you for putting them out on legal, larger than legal size paper. I went through the whole thing, a lot of questions, but I didn't know what the future held. If you got a shortfall in 2016, what are your plans to make that up in 2017? Or is it just a snowball that's rolling into an avalanche?
A snowball is a good analogy.
Pardon?
A snowball is a really good analogy. Yes, it's a snowball that's been growing for a number of years, and it's growing really big, and it's actually grown to the point where it's grown outside of us. Part of the whole problem, started with the sheriff contracting issue, was our inability to get a levy passed. Because of that inability, we've been basically borrowing money from ourselves, which is taking money out of the general fund, the carryover, and putting it to subsidize the police department. The problem is we're simply running out of that carryover, and at some point, we're just going to simply flat run out of money, and that's when we're going to have to start making cuts in the police department. Now, again, we made some changes this year. We probably saved at least, $200,000-$300,000 coming out of the gate. So we have moved that down a little bit off, and probably for a couple of years. But we still need a levy. I mean, we're going broke.
Well, let me explain.
One more thing. I just want to say one more thing.
Okay, go ahead.
This is one of the reasons, though, why we developed the Budget Commission. The board did the Budget Commission. Greg Brush, who's the chair of the Budget Commission, is here. And that's one of the reasons we did that, was to have somebody else overlook what was being done, how the money was being spent, and is there some other way that we can cut or do something else that would preclude us from having to do this.
Those folks are representing the citizens. They're not elected officials.
No, I understand.
So anyway, I just wanted to...
I appreciate the commission. It's a great idea. You guys, if you need any input, give me a call sometime. But my concern is this. I've seen the levies over the years that you try to get passed. Mm-hmm. They're not explained very well. They just say we need money. And when I get into the budget to see why you need the money, I can't figure it out. So I think if you're going to in the future ask for levies, you need to do it in a way that people can understand why you need the money.
Well,
not why you want the money, why you need it.
No, I totally disagree. I put on, I don't know how many levies. I know they put on at least one levy, probably two. And everything I've seen details how bad we need the money. We talk about how much money is brought into the township out of the levy. I think 18% out of all the money you pay in your property taxes comes to the township for operation. And the fact of the matter is we haven't had any new money in a long time, and we've explained that. We've explained the cutbacks that would need to be taken in the police department if we don't get additional money. I don't know what else we can put out there. Now, what we probably can do is do a better job of going door to door and making people really aware of this, because we put it in the newsletter, it winds up in the newspaper, we have sent things out in the past. The problem is as you find out from anything that you do in the public arena, as far as either doing a levy or running for office or whatever, I do the same thing. I get all this political mail in my mailbox. I look at it, I throw the meeting in the trash.
Well, I don't want to debate it. But
I know.
I can tell you from my perspective, you do not sell your levies very well. That's
well, I
my
certainly like
perspective.
your input on how we would do that.
Yeah. And I appreciate your questions as well. In regard to the 5-year budget, there are many governmental entities that do that. There are many that do not. I believe school boards are required to do a 5-year budget. One of the problems with the 5-year forecast is when much of your workforce is unionized, putting stuff out there in a 5-year forecast before you have a contract could negatively affect those negotiations. So I think there's positives about doing a 5-year forecast, and there's also negatives. I think that's something that we need to take into consideration. And, we have the ability through our UAN software to potentially do that. And, I think that's an issue that the Budget Commission should definitely look at. But I know one of the downsides that could cost the township money is by putting numbers out there prior to when contracts are approved. That's a big concern. And when it comes down, and I understand why you're here, we're proposing to put a levy on the ballot for the police. We're going to be going and asking the taxpayers for more money. And I don't take that lightly. There are many levies that I, as a voter, personally vote no on, because I think overall the taxes, just when it comes to federal, state, and local combined, are relatively high. In this situation, though, that we have right now is that, we have one option, contracting with the sheriff, and there are many people in this room that disagree with that option, and there are many people that debate the amount of cost savings on that, and I'm not here to discuss that tonight. The other option is laying off the officers that we have on the street, and I will not support that. We need to maintain the level of police that we have on our street right now in order to keep the township safe. And one variable that I don't think anyone is probably going to mention tonight is in regards to the recent news that's happened and the recent things that have happened to police officers. I don't think it's going to get any cheaper to run a police department anywhere in the United States of America.
I'm not disagreeing with you. And I think the Hardy Police Department does an excellent job. No question about that. I think the problem is how you are presenting increases. They're not very clear. They're not transparent.
Okay.
We can't get to the only way we can go to see the budget at all is we got to go to the town treasurer and ask for a copy that's this big, that thick. And I'm glad you're looking at using the State of Ohio's program to publish the budget on the website. That's great. So looking forward to that. But I think you need some support in how better to market why you need money. I mean, you're saying you're getting $400,000 out of your general budget to support the police department. Well, if you're doing that, what are you sacrificing from your general budget to achieve that?
A lot. That's the problem.
It's being drained down.
The short answer to your question is for almost 10 years we've been taking anywhere from $300 to $500 and supplementing the police department through the general fund. I don't have a general fund to do that anymore. If we do, we're going to be put in a emergency situation, and we're going to have the state coming in and taking us over. In addition, we lose $1 million in revenue that we hadn't. The problems that we've got in this state right now and what we've been dealing with is these things are so fluid at this point that you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, let alone 3 or 4 years from now.
Okay.
And in fact, we've got some other things happening right now that have to do with coming down from the state and some of the health care stuff and everything that is going to affect it probably very significantly as well.
That's where a 5-year plan, rather than piecemealing money in to support one entity when you need money for other entities, we need the whole picture so we can better understand, okay, we'll do this for this entity, but knowing we have this in the future for that. But piecemealing is not the answer.
Well, let me ask you this. You do understand that, like, each department has their own fund, right? I mean, there's a road levy, there's a police levy, there's a fire levy. And those monies can only go into those funds. They can't be used for anything else.
Right.
So, and then anything that they need above that they can't get out of their levy funds, that generally comes out of the general fund, is transferred over. Basically. Right now, the only department running in the black is the fire department. And so the service department and the police department are both running in the red.
Okay.
And being subsidized out of the general fund.
Well, sorry to take up all your time, but I think this is some key issues. Thank you very much.
Yeah, those are good questions. We appreciate it. And I think one thing I will close on is that this has been an ongoing problem since the last police levy was passed in 2006. And of course, the board, I took office in 2010. We were aware of what was coming. I kept calling it a cliff. We have to address it because the general fund cannot sustain those transfers. So we knew that what you do is you put a property tax levy on for the police department, and it failed. We knew that it comes down to paying taxes, which is why we then did the Jed Z, because the issue at the time for the levy not passing was the amount of police services provided to Miller Lane. With that information out there, the Jed Z handily passed. But the issue was because at that time, the residents did not believe in paying more property tax until there was parity with where the services for the police department was being used. We are now here again, several years later, still with the same issue from everything that Mark Adams outlined from the general fund standpoint, and it's our attempt to make the police department whole to serve this township for many years to come.
Throughout this process for the last 4 or 5 months, you know, one of the things we're hearing is we want to keep our police department, and, you know, you could come to us for a levy and give us the chance to be able to pay it. So that's what we're doing.
My name is Pat Borgading, 3242 Green Turtle Drive, just right down the street. And this is my first township meeting. I've been to hundreds of city council meetings in Troy. And do you say that there are some more things coming down the pike where it's going to affect our budget from the state?
Yeah.
Okay. How many police officers do we currently have on the force?
9 officers, 3 sergeants, a lieutenant.
Do we have a police chief?
Right there.
Okay, you're the police chief. Okay, so we do have a chief. So we've got 10 total then?
No, 15.
15.
14, I think. Wait a minute, what's the number there? 9. Oh, detective.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. I have, with what happened with the contract trying to get the sheriff to take over, my concern is that the good people of the township approve this levy, and then the money gets directed over, and then we're still taken over by the sheriff's department. What do we have
Can't happen now.
that reassures us of that? How is the wording going to be in the levy that says that?
The ballot that we're talking about, the changes that we're talking about making, continue using, we have to, almost have to continue using the levy that was already on the books. That levy includes wording on the ballot that it was put out there on, that we have been given a legal opinion that we cannot contract
Okay.
with.
Actually, we were
So-
never.
Long story short, we've added more language this evening that establishes it for the Butler Township
I mean,
Police
you can
Department.
understand our
Oh,
concerns.
I understand them.
We were all basically told we're going to do it our own way. I had to read it in the newspaper, but okay. So we're going to move on. The next issue is what this gentleman was talking about is the roads. I constantly have to serpentine around manholes and everything else right here on this very road. And how much is the budget for the roads in Butler Township?
You talk about on Little York?
Little York?
Yeah.
Yeah, and our problem, it's a county road.
This is?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. S curves all the way through, yeah. And they're having funding issues too. That's why we're dealing with what we've been dealing with, so yeah.
Okay, so all the way down to Peters Road
Yeah.
is county.
Generally, the breakdown will be if you're on a side street, a residential
Yep.
street, you're on a township road.
Okay.
If you're on a main thoroughfare, you're either on a state route or a county road.
Okay. I'll be talking to the county.
Dodge that one.
Hello, everybody. Ruth Kistler, 7500 Turtleback Drive. I just have a few quick questions, I believe, to clarify some facts that I come across. The 3.5 mil proposed levy, I understand would generate about $755,000 a year. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sure it'll get explained, so I don't even want to get into what the over the 10 mil thing means. And that levy would be dedicated solely to the police department?
That's correct. That's correct.
Cost?
That's correct.
Okay.
It has to.
My next thing is, there's $440,000 is generated right now, or is being funneled into the police department from the Jed Z.
For 2016, yes.
Okay. Is everyone current, and is it being collected from everyone at this point?
Yeah, and I would have to confirm with Vandalia that as of today, everybody is collecting, but
Okay.
But yes.
So that's an average figure you could look at kind of going forward?
Yeah. Well, there was some companies that we were not collecting from last year, although we, So we'll catch up this year
Sure.
from that.
Okay.
So we won't see those, we won't see what that transfer will be until the end of the year,
Okay,
But
or
generally,
the beginning of 2017, actually.
okay,
generally, those are smaller users, though, so the amount of money is not going to be
Okay.
significant.
We did have some decent-sized users in the past, though. Ruth, probably about a year and a half ago, we had some issues with many of the people in collecting the income
Yeah,
tax.
I know.
One of the problems is that a township really doesn't have control over the collections. It's up to the city that you partner with.
right. And so I understand on an average now, it's about $350,000 coming out of the general fund to supplement the police department.
It's been smaller than that, a little bit smaller than that.
Okay.
Once or twice, it's been much larger than that sometimes, too.
Okay. My question, and I'm not saying right or wrong, I just don't quite understand, the proposed shortfall for next year, 2017, was $572,000, and that's quite a jump from the 350 or whatever, for 1 year or so's time. And then in 2020, it jumped up at another $80,000 to $657,000 shortfall.
You're talking about for the levy recommendations?
The
correct?
proposed shortfall with the budget and
Yeah.
income as it is now, and of course that would have been, I'm sure, is the rationale behind why the levy would be needed.
Looking at the next 5 years is what you're talking about. The 5-year projection for the police fund, we're looking at in 2017, without doing the general fund transfer and any increases.
Oh, that's without the transfer.
Yes, without
Okay.
the transfer from the general fund.
Okay.
That's still including the Jed Z. But without that, or it's including, most of the Jed Z. And then without, or with salary increases, benefits, I mean, just looking out to next year, it would be $572,000 shortfall in 2017.
And that wouldn't include what we're, the 300 or approximately, okay,
Yeah, it does not include that transfer.
okay,
One thing that you don't see that's not in that police budget for the most part, I mean, for where the money comes from, but the cruisers are all purchased out of the TIF. And so that money doesn't come, it's not shown as a transfer out of the general fund or money that's actually in the police budget as far as coming out of the levy or from the Jed Z. If we didn't have the TIF, that's, what is a couple cruisers dressed out, 50,000 a piece, something like that, maybe?
Yeah, it's about 87.
Okay, so 87,000 bucks for two that's not included in there.
okay.
And at some point, the TIFs have to go away, and that money's going to have to be made up also.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. And I assume that these shortfalls and all this, you've taken into consideration the cost savings that we've already incurred, say, this year with one administrator position as opposed to two, and whatever it was you were talking about saving.
Well, this
the
is just
police-
police fund only, so the administrator position would not be.
Well,
part
I'm
of-
just saying,
Yeah.
money in general, I know that's part of the general fund or whatever that you're talking about getting depleted. And my last question was the trash. How much is outstanding, the trash collection fees? I mean, is it a sizable amount? I'm just dumbfounded if people don't pay their bills.
Total collection amounts, we're looking at $21,035.97 that we're going to be sending out for collection.
Wow, I had no idea it was that much. That's crazy.
It's, how long is the list? 3 pages?
Yeah, it's,
Yeah, there's a significant amount of,
And is that for just like 1 year period, or is that just
it's
over?
1 year, yeah, delinquencies for 1 year.
Oh my goodness.
But now remember, none of that comes out of the general fund. That's all in the.
I know,
Okay.
but I'm just saying, I just, that's beyond me. And the is that just a straight flow through what we pay, you just in turn pay Rumpke? I mean, that's, the township doesn't get a little piece of that for the,
well, it pays part of the person the township employs to handle the fund, but
Okay.
essentially that's what it's used for.
okay,
We have one person that their salary and benefits and everything go out of the police fund.
okay.
And supplies and,
Trash fund.
yeah, we're on the police side.
I know what she meant.
You were with me. But yeah, out of the trash fund.
Okay. All right.
And actually, it does. It almost passes through. I mean,
Yeah,
there's
I
not a
figured it.
significant surplus.
Yeah, I didn't figure you were making a profit off of picking up our trash, but, that's crazy.
Great, thank you.
21,000, wow. Thank you.
Anyone else? I got somebody coming up your side there real fast. Hold on. Or, shoot.
Beth Cooper, 7649 Painted Turtle Drive. Don't worry, the questions are easy. They're just more for my factual information. Erica, you said that including most of the Jed Z money goes to the police.
Yeah, and what we had talked about briefly in the Budget Commission meetings was looking at the Jed Z. That district is supported by our service department and our fire department and other departments. So is it possible, or should, that those Jed Z funds eventually, at some point down the road, be supporting those other departments too? So it's nothing that's been determined, yes, we're going to take 50% or 75% or what. I know we talked in the meeting, maybe the first $400,000 goes to the police department, and then above that, it goes to service, to help service the roads and things in the district. So it was just something the Budget Commission has talked about doing.
But
So-
currently, 100% of the Jed Z
Yes.
goes to our police department.
Yes.
Because I know our neighborhood was very active in getting the Jed Z to pass, and it was with the understanding that that was where it was going.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Clarification, you said previously that the township has saved $200,000 to $300,000. Not on the police budget, though, right?
No, most of it's general fund money.
Okay. That was a little fuzzy.
Some of it was in the service department, most of it's in the general fund. But again, that general fund money allows us then to transfer that money to the police department. So
And then you said that the TIF will expire, it's not always going to be there?
it will eventually go away. Yeah. Once the bonds are paid off, the TIFs go
Okay.
away.
Okay. See, that was easy. Thank you.
Anyone else? Sure, go ahead.
Harold Scantlin, Land's End Court. First off, thank you so much for being out there for us. In your general funds, where does the money come from?
Property taxes.
General property tax.
General
Not-
property.
Not the special levy.
Okay, are they transferable?
Yes.
From the general fund, they are.
Okay, so is any of your other transferables, say, not used money, can you transfer it into general?
No.
Do you have an emergency fund?
Yeah,
Start-
we used to have a general
Okay,
fund.
start an emergency fund.
No,
I
we
work
spent it
for-
all in the police department.
Well, I work for the city of Dayton.
Yeah.
I was a manager there. I use my money in emergency fund instead of general funds. You can transfer it from emergency funds anywhere you need it. General funds you can't.
First of all, townships are different than cities. Again, the police fund cannot come out of the police department. The money that's raised on that levy can only go, you can go to get a court order maybe, if, under emergency transfer, and that it stays there. The only fund that can transfer money anywhere else in the township is the general fund. And there's two ways we do money. We either do it's a transfer, and what's the other one? One is where we give it and don't expect it back. One is where we expect it to come back. What are those two?
Okay.
But anyway, there's two ways to transfer money.
Right.
But only out of general fund can you do that.
Okay, if you've got an emergency fund or a general fund, you use it for snow and ice removal, salt, and all of that.
No, generally not.
That's the
Road.
service, roads.
We have a road levy.
There's a road levy that pays for that. Now, in an emergency, if there was a really bad winter and they ran out of money for salt, and we have money in the general fund, in our carryover, we would use that money to subsidize them, yes.
That's what we did, only we called it an emergency
And
fund.
let me just tell you real quick, one of the things that Erica was talking about as far as the Jed Z and trying not to transfer all that money every year into the police department is to build up some of that carryover fund so that we can use that money in other departments as needed.
Okay.
And I think I understand why you're having a misunderstanding is because in municipalities, they're funded by municipal income tax. That municipal income tax, whether the rate's 2%, 2.5%, 1.5%, that tends to fund your entire broad range of municipal services.
Right.
And you don't have the need for special police levies. We have road levies in this township. We have special funds. So there's a lot less that we can transfer back in. And our emergency fund, our rainy day fund, is a carryover in our general fund. And we've been spending that, and that's becoming depleted, which is why.
We have almost nothing
Yes.
left in the general fund
Yes.
carryover.
Understand perfectly, and right there is a guy that's guarding us. So I understand perfectly, and he needs to get paid, but I just want to make that point. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. All right.
Limited home rule, are you guys voting on that tonight?
Yes. We'll discuss it, and then we'll vote on it.
So have you guys already drawn up some kind of plan for the home rule, or does that come after the vote?
Well, I mean, it's pretty much set into the law as far as how it works. We'll discuss again what the pros and cons, why we want to do it, and then it'll be on the ballot, and then up to us to educate the community, and then the community to actually vote on it at the ballot box. Okay. Anyone else? All right. Very well. Thanks, everybody. We'll move on to the recommendation of the Budget Commission. Ms. Vogel, how do you want to do that?
Actually,
Mr.
Greg
Brush.
is going to come up and speak.
Well, I appreciate everybody stealing my thunder. With all your questions. Yeah, great questions. And in all honesty, it's complicated. Okay, it's not easy. And as this gentleman said, I was in business for years. Government is not like a business. Government is not designed to run like a business by the laws written or the Higher Revised Code for very good reasons. So it is complicated. I appreciate the folks that take the time to try to figure it out. The question about the 10 mil limitations and whatnot, I think what you're referring to is what's called inside 10 mils, and anything of that is outside voted. I could talk till you all fall asleep about this. It's very complicated stuff. It's very difficult. The transfer of the money is difficult and all that. But again, thank you for trying to take the time to figure it out and taking the time to figure it out. But my name is Greg, and I apologize. I'm going to read this because this is from the committee. Sherry Edwards is here. Ken Betts is here. Mark Adams is on our committee, and Erica Vogel and myself. We also have an opening on the committee. David Moeller had to drop out. His business picked up more, and he could not make the time commitment. Jack Woods is not able to be with us tonight. So I'm going to read this because it's from the group. My name is Greg Brush, and I'm here representing the Township Budget Committee of Mark Adams, Ken Betts, Sherry Edwards, Erica Vogel, Jack Woods, and myself. As I am sure you are aware, we met on July 19th to discuss the issue of recommending placing a levy for police services on this fall's ballot. We had a lengthy and interesting discussion on whether we should recommend a levy and what that recommended millage amount should be. While we all have different takes on the details of funding the police department, there was no debate that the township has a serious funding problem that we have to address. The general fund cannot continue to supplement the police budget. The last 5 years have seen an average of $369,276 moved from the general fund to the police fund. I think we all agree that we would have liked to have more time to chew over the data, look at what cuts to recommend, and dive into every financial aspect of the township more in depth before making a recommendation. Maybe this would have allowed us to craft the perfect recommendation. However, the reality of the situation called for prompt action. It is our understanding that in order for a levy to be placed on this fall's ballot, action is needed at this township meeting. Further, I'm not sure that such a thing as a perfect recommendation, that there is such a thing as a perfect recommendation. There are competing goals when it comes to government funding. There are also unknowns that we cannot plan for. For example, one goal is to have a request that is adequate for as long as possible, possibly as long as 5 to 8 years. But another goal is to keep the amount as low as possible so as not to burden our citizens any more than we have to. As far as unknowns, the most immediate unknown is how the next state budget will affect our township. If the local government fund is cut once again, we know this can undermine our efforts. It is against this backdrop that the committee recommends that the trustees place a $3.5 million additional levy on the 2016 fall ballot to be used for the funding of the Butler Township Police Department. If we wait, we will not receive, if this is not done, we will not receive any additional help in 2016. And if we wait to put it on in 2017, and if it would pass then, we won't get money until 2018. It is important to note that we recommend the levy language mirror that of the existing levy language so that the citizens are aware and ensured that the money will be used for the township's police department, not for contracting out of police services. The safety and security of the citizens of Butler Township and our law enforcement officers make it imperative that adequate funding is provided for the future operation of our police department. It should be noted that some committee members suggested that we look at a temporary 5-year levy. However, the committee determined the recommendation is for a 3.5 mil, and the trustees will make the decision on the type of levy. It is also important to note that the committee will be reviewing the current budget and future budgets to trim costs and to make the township run as lean as possible. The 3.5 mil levy would cost the owner of a home valued at $100,000, $122.50 per year. We understand that this is a big decision. We further understand that the funding decision is not up to the committee, nor is it up to the trustees. Ultimately, it is a decision of the citizens on how we proceed. I'd be happy to answer any of your questions or any of those from the public. Just, can I say one thing, just so you can get this down? We have our next meeting, before I forget, we have our next meeting is scheduled for Friday, August 5th at 8 a.m., and we'll be meeting all day. And at that point, we're going to start diving in at more of a line-by-line basis. And obviously, it's an open meeting. You're more than welcome to come. So, sir. Yes, sir. The levy was set here approximately $655,000, $755,000, excuse me, would come in. The reason for that, if you ask for exactly what you need, guess what 2 years brings? Us coming back here and doing the exact same thing. The goal is, your costs are always escalating, right? It's on a rise. Because as Trustee Lang said, the bulk of it is personnel. Personnel costs with health care, personnel costs on salary, ancillary costs with personnel go up. That's how we keep our good people. Your costs are always going up. They almost never go down unless you lay people off. So the result, if you hit that apex right on the head, you've done nothing but maybe gained a year or two, and you're right back where you were. The goal is to raise enough money to fund it as long as possible so you don't have to keep coming back to folks, but also realize that the millage, once it's set, stays at a stagnant level. So if your home value goes up, the money coming in the township doesn't go up, and that's what's referred to as the effective millage. So you can't recoup that. So if you say, well, that's cool because the prices or the values of home are going up, that doesn't mean that the township's going to receive a dime more on their levy. It's a help on the inside millage, that 10 mil we talked about, or I mentioned, and you brought up. It helps with that, but it doesn't help on the levies.
Hey, Greg.
The effective rate, correct? Theoretically.
That's the reduction factor that you see on your property tax bill. When you put a levy on the ballot and it's voted in, if you collect $1 million the first year, or $755,000, $755,000 is the limit that you can collect on that levy for the rest of the term.
One point I think maybe getting crossing lines, when we talk about shortfall, right now part of that shortfall is coming out of the police fund reserve itself. By the end of 17, at this current rate, that fund's gone. So part of it is covering the transfer. Part of it's also recovering the reserves in that fund. So that makes it, it's not just $350,000. It's more like $700,000. Hold on.
All of it's for the police.
It would go for the police department, but it would eliminate the necessity of the general fund, at least in the short term, supplementing that cost. And just remember to think about it as a broad fund can be transferred to a limited fund, but a limited fund you could take the fire levy and say, hey, guess what? I'm going to now use 50 grand of that for whatever. Well, what you're going to do is you're going to let the general, you're going to untouch the general fund so that you can basically shift it into the other areas that are coming up short. We face a decision, if things aren't crafted, you're going to have to do something with the roads. I know you weren't happy with the county, and I can tell you when they meet. But what you'll hear actually from Mr. Gruner, who's the county engineer, is they have not had an increase in the funding system for the roadways and infrastructure since 1993. And it's inadequate. It's based on gasoline tax, which is a consumption tax, where we all know that as our cars have gotten better mileage, that's gone down. So you've capped it, anyway, because you've not increased the amount, and then you've capped the usage, so they're in a hole that they're not going to get out of anytime soon. The general fund can be replenished, number one, by not robbing from it, which will give what this gentleman said about an emergency fund to give you flexibilities. But the reality is that's going to go and plug other areas that are deficit. Like I said, the street fund, and I'm sorry, I don't want to talk about this, but the street fund is not adequate. The levy is not adequate to do what we need it to do. We're falling behind because we've had to take money that normally might be able to put in a pavement plan. So basically it gives the township trustees the opportunity to get things caught up in a good base. I'm always a believer if you don't have a strong base, you can't build on the nice things.
And just to let you know real quickly, you were talking about the inside millage. The general fund comes out of the inside millage. The inside millage is the only millage that will grow with value. So as value goes up, the 10 mil does go up. But we only get a small part of the 10 mil also. I mean, when we're talking about this 10 mil, do you remember what we get, anybody? I can't remember off the top of my head. A couple percent maybe out of it?
Yeah, it's small. I think by the Constitution, the majority, I'm not here to bash the school.
Yeah, I don't.
The majority goes to the schools.
Okay, it's very small.
It's small.
But that's where we get general fund money. And that's solely where we get general fund money.
Yes, sir. I do not, but I can tell you that that 755 figure is derived from the auditor computing a 95% collection rate. You know, it really depends how far behind people are in delinquent. You know, eventually, like a residential, you'll catch up on that because it'll sell and people will settle up. Some of the bigger things, like maybe the land bank would take something over, a larger piece of property, a prime piece of property, and that value might be eliminated out. But for the most part, that eventually comes up. So that's why they computed at 95%.
But that that changes every year, though, annually.
Yeah,
But you have to understand that, you know, if somebody doesn't pay their taxes, eventually it goes up for sheriff's sale. When it goes up for sheriff's sale, the odds are we're going to get nothing out of that sale. What it will do generally is get it back on the books as far as starting to pay taxes again. And I can tell you from just looking at sheriff sales, you know, our sale rate has diminished substantially. I mean, over what it was at the peak. So I would say that generally we're doing pretty good on collection of property.
We're required to use the numbers from the county treasurer, basically to tell us auditor. Well, she collects it, whatever. Okay, the auditor tells us what our revenues are going to be from those taxes. And just so everybody knows that inside millage, somebody questioned the outside millage type of thing. Once again, so that everybody understands, there is 10 mills that we're allowed to have that doesn't have to be approved by voters, et cetera. It's called the inside millage, and that's what funds our general fund, et cetera. Outside millage.
I don't think you should go this far.
Yeah, let's get back on that.
Fine, okay.
because they don't control all that. Yeah. Yes, sir. It sits in, any additional money would sit in the police department. Ideally, when we looked at this as a committee, number one, we can stop the hemorrhaging of the general fund. Number two, it can free up the total dependence upon the JED Z. Now, we haven't, I don't want to get and speak for the committee because we haven't gotten in that, but there are a lot of other things that money can go for. And as pointed out, and Erica said earlier, there's other resources within the township that go there that need to be compensated out of that JED Z. So the goal would be that we can make the fire department whole as best possible. You're not going to. This is not going to make the fire department, or excuse me, the police department whole. It's not going to do it. You're going to have to still use that JED Z money.
Yeah. Now, understand the other thing that we attempt to do when we budget, especially on these things, is build up a surplus in that fund to carry it out farther. Eventually, you're going to start eating away that surplus, and that's when you have to start putting a levy around to start funding that back over. So it's a cyclical type of activity that happens.
Yeah.
That's why
Yeah.
Yeah, within the fund.
Correct.
No.
Right, no.
Let's look at actual numbers, just so that things are getting floated around. What the Budget Commission has said, in 2017, if a levy were to pass, there would be a variance, that is a savings of $177,000. By the end of that 5 years, there's only $92,000 difference. That money then would go into the police fund. And like everyone said, the bigger picture, of course, is in the general fund can be supported in other funds that might need it to avoid having to go back for future property tax levies to make the money go further.
It keeps other departments from getting into the same situation.
Even though the service department's already
And
there.
gives us an emergency fund that we can use if we need.
What you end up with is Lucas
Wanna call
County
it that.
has 5 separate levies on 5 different entities on the ballot this fall. Because things have slipped. Now, it's a depressed area up there. I'm not blaming anybody. But things have slipped so far. They put 5 issues on the ballot to try to catch up all at once. And the goal is that's just too burdensome to taxpayers. So the goal is to try to get enough so that they can adjust. You want to try to budget at home so that you can deal with that, and you know that's a long-term projection.
Yeah, and we've talked about the police department's budget for the past 6 months. One area that, we are running close in, and Greg has mentioned it, is our service department. The service department budget and our roads budget is much smaller than our police department's budget. By freeing up the general fund money that we were transferring over to the police department's budget may be used for our road department and may prevent us from having to go to the ballot for a levy for the road fund.
No. Does the township have the ability to abate taxes? Usually the cities and the state will do that. They're the only ones that play God. No. Thank God. Yes. Right. Yeah, that's one of the things, and maybe I did a poor job of relaying that the Budget Commission will be looking at that in its totality, and our goal is to run everything as lean as we can, but yet provide services, because that's what we're talking about at the end of the day. The township provides services. So for them to be able to provide the services, they need the revenue in order to do that. So we'll look at that. Our goal is to look at everything in as minute detail. Not that I don't think that these guys haven't cut. As Mark indicated, they've cut $1 million. So it's not that they haven't cut stuff. It's just the fact that this is Greg's opinion, you're not going to cut your way out of this. This is going to resolve itself one way or another. And I hate to be doom and gloom, because it's going to stop within 2 years. There's going to be no money, okay? So there's going to be, the transfer from the general fund is going to stop one way or another. Either because there's not going to be anything left to move.
And you, really quick, you asked about other funds. The service department last year had 3 people in it. Service department had 3 people in it. They were down from 6. We have since then put 1 more back. We're still down 2 people in the service department. Otherwise, they would be solely in the red also. So, as Greg just said, it's all a service delivery issue.
In the last several years, the budgets that we've had have come down almost 30%.
And I do want
But again, Greg, would you mind giving the quick primer about, really, we come to the residents, and that's how we deliver.
Right. And that's one of the things when I sat here where Mark is, it's one of the things that the board doesn't make this decision to increase the people's taxes. Okay? The people vote on it. That's what I love about the township. You set the service level. So it's in your hands. It's not like where you might have a city who gets X amount of dollars and they decide what the police department should be and they decide what the road department should be and whatnot, because it's just one pot. The township gets to determine that. Now, it's difficult because we have this hodgepodge and we run on property taxes, which I think is the purest form of raising the money personally. I pay tax where I work, and I don't get a vote for what goes on there. I think that's taxation without representation. I don't like it, but that's allowed by the state law. So it is ultimately up to the citizens to determine what the service level is. Well, I think it was going to be done in paper until...
There's a grease board, I think, somewhere.
But, and I apologize, I don't know who made the point about getting the information out. Because I agree with that comment, but I also agree with what Joe said. It's a very complicated issue, and it's difficult. I mean, when you get your tax bill, it's not like, oh, that X goes to that, and Y goes to that. I mean, you really have to look at it and understand what's going on. Most of us just want to roll it all together. So it's difficult to understand. But we could do a better job at getting the word out. You're absolutely right. The problem is they can't say, hey, we're going to put a pro-levy thing on and we're going to spend township dollars. They can't do that.
We're not allowed.
It's illegal. So you have to let other people basically hope they take your banner up for you and put that out. It's a very fine line. You have to be very careful.
But there's a couple guys here that I think would do real well with it if they took it on.
Yeah, and I think you hit a point there because, and I'm not picking on the fire department, but it's like, well, you have money in the fire department, use it. But you can't. It's illegal. So, until somebody sits down and explains that to you, it's like, well, that doesn't make sense. It's our money. But,
Yeah, and I'll raise something else too. People have pointed out certain things that have occurred that we've spent money on, for example, over on Miller Lane, et cetera, et cetera. Well, we have TIF funds there, tax increment funding. And the funds that come from the money that we get from those taxes that we collect for those TIFs have to be spent on the area that they're coming from. If not, we lose them. So keep that in mind. You lose it.
well,
That doesn't happen here, though.
that doesn't happen in a township. That's a concept of a city and a state.
And one of these days, we'll have a little primer on TIFs, if you guys like. It's not free money. The first word in TIF is tax. It's a tax money. And let me tell you, the longer we put that out, the more money we spend. We're talking millions of dollars now. We've stretched this thing out to 20, 30-something, means that we can't pay off those bonds, which means we can't release those TIFs, which means all that development over on Miller Lane, when you put this levy on, it's not going to generate a dollar that goes into that man's department. It all goes into that TIF fund to be squandered by the board up here.
Not squander. You're going to pay it off early.
Huh?
All of Miller Lane is the developed area that's not developed. Are we collecting tax on that?
I don't want to
Well,
answer for the board, but it's not.
that was what I was telling you. There's a TIF on Miller Lane, right? Taxing and financing. All that development that you've seen happen since the early 2000s, all that money is taken off. It is put into a special fund called a TIF fund. We can use that for public improvements, but that's it. No expenditures for personnel or anything else. The problem is, we're like all governments. We get a big old hunk of money. We like to see what we can spend it on, so we do spend it. And the fact is, the more that we spend, the longer those bonds go out. Originally, the bonds were going to expire in 20-something. Now they're going to expire in 2035 or something like that. And until those bonds are paid off, none of that development over there will come into his fund, the road fund, or the general fund. It all goes in those TIF funds.
But realize, though, I mean, it's a two-edged sword, right? There's a benefit from it because it spurs the development, but the bad side is that you kind of hurt yourself because you hurt your levies.
Right.
And somebody had mentioned it earlier. When you get your tax bill, we get about 17% of it. Okay, that's what funds this entire township. A TIF, we get almost all the property taxes that come in from that. Okay, except we make the schools whole. Okay, so we give them their portion, and we get the rest of it.
I think we're going about a million different directions. Let's kind of focus us on what we're talking about right now.
So
So the issue of the Budget Commission, are there any direct questions regarding the Budget Commission's report?
Actually, the line by line, we would trust the professionals to make the staffing. You know, Captain could tell you, Ken.
The one thing, and I guess I should have asked you before you got up there. Is any of this recommendation include additional officers, or is it based on what we have?
It's based on the staffing levels for 2016, which included the lieutenant position.
Okay. But I mean, we're not talking about
It's
additional.
Not
maintaining current
increasing
staff levels.
status quo.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're talking another barrel of monkeys.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I think Ken just laid out what you guys,
Anything, and I should have asked you before.
what you guys discussed.
I think that would blow people's minds.
Oh,
I've probably already bored them to death anyway, so it'd be a good time to stun them.
All right, are there any more
Next time
direct,
I recommend a hand puppet or something.
any more direct questions for Mr. Bush?
Oh, yeah. There's not much.
Yes.
I mean, it's one of the problems. We're quickly running out of development. Please? Yeah, generally. And it's owned, some of it's owned by Singer Properties, some of it's owned by Claiborne, guy that owns
Morris Furniture.
No, there's really nothing as far as, we've talked to some developers. There's really nothing to push that envelope right now. I mean, again, we have a very limited amount of space left to develop here. I don't know if you know, but Erica, why don't you, about the land on Miller Lane, the state property.
The ODOT property is recently sold to a hotel developer, so we could see development there. Burger King is developing on the corner of Town Center and Benchwood Road, and there's another hotel behind that that's looking at developing as well. Hopefully we'll see something with the Morris Furniture site behind Chick-fil-A. I think as time goes on, they're going to be ready to either get off that land and sell it or do something themselves with it. So hopefully we see more development in recent years.
It's always
It's outside.
Okay, yeah, so you know, all levies that you vote on are outside millage. So and you're right, the forest for the trees, right? So I know it, so I do a poor job. So thank you for your indulgence, guys.
Great, thank you very much, and to the other members of the Budget Commission as well. Thank you so much. Okay, moving on to administrator's recommendations, Ms.
If I might, Mike, before we go into this, I know that we have been doing this where, you know, generally it goes as I make a motion, Nick seconds it, you vote. I wondered, especially, at least, I'd like to do this all the time, but at least for tonight, because I know there's some issues on here we may not have everyone's support. If we could do the motion second and then bring it back, open for discussion, and then take the vote, so we'd have a vote.
Yeah, that's fine.
That way it frees us up to vote, to make the motion to go ahead, have the discussion, yet vote against the.
Yeah, no, I'm fine with that.
And Mark, you just
You all right with
vote.
that?
You can just call for the vote.
We'll call for a vote.
No, usually Mike would do that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I'll ask, you know, if you want to make the motion for it and
Okay,
get a second, and we'll enter discussion, then we can vote for it from there.
good enough.
Okay. First, we have resolution number 16-35, a resolution declaring it necessary to levy a tax in excess of the 10 million limitation. And this is all based on the recommendation of the Budget Commission that we just discussed.
Erica, could you read that ballot language just so the public can hear it, and
Yes.
especially the additions that you've placed in there?
Well, do you want to do it first and second first, then open it for discussion?
If you want to do that, yeah. Well, she can do it, and then we can do the open up for us to discuss it. How's that?
That'll work. Erica?
Okay. Now therefore be it resolved, the majority of the Butler Township Board of Trustees, Montgomery County, Ohio concur that it is necessary to levy a tax in excess of the 10 mil limitation for the benefit of Butler Township for the purpose of providing and maintaining motor vehicles, communications, and other equipment used directly in the operation of the Butler Township Police Department or the payment of salaries of permanent Butler Township Police Department personnel, including the payment of policemen employers' contribution required under Section 742.33 of the Ohio Revised Code at a rate not exceeding 3.5 mils for each $1 valuation, which amounts to 35 cents for each $100 of valuation for a continuous period of time. That's it.
All right.
Entertain a motion.
You can.
You can.
No, you're done.
Well,
Okay.
when we do, I'm sorry, sir, hold on a second, hear me out. When we do this, the public discussion is over, it's for the board now. It's not a town hall meeting. The board is the governing body, so we've moved past that point. Hopefully we'll maybe answer your question or fill in the blanks for you after our discussion.
Yeah,
Right, that's
3.5
what you just read. It's for a specific amount, the millage we're asking for, and a set amount.
Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to approve Resolution 1635, a resolution declaring it necessary to levy a tax in excess of the 10 mil limitation.
Second?
And we'll open this up for discussion.
All right.
All right, so the question, to fall back on what you're saying, is you were afraid that it was not saying how much the levy was for. Yet in the language of it, it was a 3.5 mil levy. And as a side note, what I would suggest, depending on what our vote goes, go to the website, mcauditor.org. It's the county auditor real estate website. Type in your address. It will then show you down to the penny all of your levy distributions for all the property tax levies currently you pay, as well as there's a new levy link, which is going to show exactly what your property tax burden is going to be if this levy goes to the ballot to be voted on. That way there's no doubt what this levy is going to bring in, and most importantly, when you do your own personal planning and your own decision making, how that's going to affect you.
By the way, when we do this, you know, we're not just asking you. We're putting the same burden on ourselves. We don't enjoy paying taxes any more than anybody else does. So we only do this when it's absolutely necessary. So just remember that.
Okay, discussion, board.
I think we've beat this puppy to death as far as I'm concerned.
The one question I've got is a temporary versus a permanent levy. When I look at the bigger picture, you know, we've discussed globally how this has affected us as the township, and obviously the police department has been an issue. The last 7 years I've been in office, it's been publicly discussed, talked about. Budget's gone through line by line every year, but we have to work within the reality of the needs of the residents of the township. We've had some successes, the JEDZ, some failures, levies have not passed. And the last 7 months have certainly been different. But on the plus side, we have a room full of people here to talk about a levy before we put it out to the residents. And that's never happened before. Unfortunately, we have these discussions, but it's usually all of us and maybe one or two people. So for our standpoint, and for the Budget Commission's help as well, it's about getting out what the information always has been, and most importantly, what it is today. Now, of the 4 urban townships in the county, a total millage, we are second from the bottom. Washington Township's a little bit less. If you look just at township levies, we have the lowest millage amount compared to Harrison, Miami, and Washington Township. So we've certainly been very prudent and frugal to a certain degree in trying to maximize what those dollars are. But it's a township. As both Joe and Nick have said, we have to go back to the residents to provide money for services that the residents want to receive. And that's why we're here. I think, though, my issue for temporary is, Harrison just passed a police levy last November. It was temporary. I think it was for 7 years. I think half of Washington Township's levies are temporary. And that means simply is that you pass a levy, and that money is good for 7 years. The 7-year mark, we have to go back to the community and say, will you renew this levy? And it's for the same amount of money that it was before. And I think my standpoint is because we've not had success in passing levies historically, which is why we're here today. It's a matter of trust. And that if we want to ensure the passage of this levy, and we say, you know what, it's only for 7 years, we can then be good and continued good, prudent stewards of the community's tax dollars, and then hopefully very easily, successfully in 7 years go back and say, we're back here again, obviously costs have gone up, revenue's gone down, we need to go back for more money. But I think that way we're building upon faith and trust of the community, which is why I think we're prudent to go for a 7-year temporary levy.
Yeah, but imagine this, I disagree. Yeah, I know. First of all, we have no 7-year levies, no 5-year levies, anything like that. All of our levies are permanent. A number of years ago, before I got here, the township had a road levy that, in fact, was on a reoccurring basis. And the fact is, it didn't get approved. The following year, the township basically had no road department. They didn't plow streets, they didn't cut grass, anything. The fact is, we have talked this entire time about funding and supporting the police department. My feeling is, if we're going to fund the police department and we're going to back the police department, we need to do it on a permanent basis. We can still come back, whether it's 5 years, 7 years, 10 years for a replacement levy. The fact is, we may not need to come back in 7 years. If we are very good stewards of the money, if we have additional development that comes into the township, the JED-Z grows, area around the airport where we have a JED with the city of Dayton grows, we have additional income tax revenue coming in, we don't have to come back. My feeling is, why come back, put a levy on the ballot, have these discussions if we don't need it? And in other words, we can put a levy on at any time to replace the levy that we're going to do right now. Let's say something dramatically happened. The state just, once again, just cut the legs out from underneath us. It could be we'd have to come back in 4 years, 5 years, and say we need a replacement levy, rather than the statutory requirement of having a 7-year levy. In other words, beyond that, if we're going to do this, we've talked about supporting the police department on a permanent basis. Let's support the police department on a permanent basis. Let's give them the money they need to operate and take that as long as we can, and then when we need it, we'll come back and tell you what we need and why we need it again, rather than on a limited basis.
Yeah, and the approach that the Budget Commission came up with this, and how they came up with this figure was balanced. You know, there are many entities that go to the ballot that ask for a lot more the first time they ask for it. There are entities that may have had struggles getting things passed that ask for probably an inadequate amount. I think that this amount that the Budget Commission came up with is balanced, and with this being a cap of $750,000, it will never change. Every year after year, this will bring in $750,000. If costs of our police department go up in excess of that $750,000, there will be a need down the road, and maybe 20 years, maybe 25 years for an additional levy. If we have a levy that renews every 5 years, and then there will be a need for an additional levy on top of that, then we're coming to the ballot multiple times to our residents, and I think that really creates confusion. And I think in keeping with the balanced approach, I understand that there was some discussion among the Budget Commission members as to whether or not there should or it shouldn't be permanent. I think in keeping with the balanced approach, I think going for a permanent levy would be the best point at this time.
Actually, I should amend my motion then to say, okay, allow me to amend 1635 to indicate that this is going to go on as a permanent levy.
You want to second
Yeah,
that?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any other discussion on that? I just hope that the community trusts the board and that the levy is successful.
Well, if not, we'll be back here next year.
That's what we're trying to avoid.
By the way, on the bright side, just to let you know, Nick was saying 20, 25 years, before a new levy. One thing that should make you happy, I will probably be dead by then. So.
All right. Is there any more discussion?
No.
Okay. We have a motion for Resolution 1635 for a permanent or continuous levy. Mr. Flanagan.
Yes.
Mr. Brusky.
Yes.
And I also vote yes. So the resolution passes. Okay.
Okay. Next, we have resolution number 16-36, a resolution declaring it necessary to submit to the electors the question of adopting a limited home rule government. And we had this on the ballot last year for the residents to vote on. It did fail last year, but we've had many requests to bring it back to the voters. So I guess we'll have a little discussion regarding home rule.
Yeah, we've had people at our meeting tonight talk about why can't you do this? Why can't you provide this service? We are limited by the state as to exactly what we can do. By adopting home rule, that will increase the powers of this board to regulate in certain areas. This will also open us up to having multiple readings of our agenda items. It will require us to have a law director, which I think would actually be a cost savings. And I was a proponent of putting on the ballot last year, and I'm a proponent of putting on the ballot this year. Additionally, we have residents have circulated petitions, and from what I've heard, you've achieved a sufficient amount of signatures, including 2 members of this board, which means you don't have to go through the work of submitting them.
Do you want to talk to him?
Oh, yeah. Well, again, I'll just reiterate what I've said before, which is I'm opposed. First of all, one of the things we've talked about was our unwillingness to listen to the voters. I believe a 64% vote against home rule is a very staunch opposition of having home rule. My feeling isn't necessarily ironclad forever. I think there might be a time and a place where we should have home rule. This is not it. It costs more money. One of the things that I hear people talk about, they live in a township because they don't want all the government regulations you get from a municipality. The home rule actually extends what we can do and how we can do that. Our interference in your life will grow. The amount of debt that we can incur will increase. From 2010 to 2015, our debt grew from $3 million something to $9.3 million. That's 146% increase in our debt. And I'm not sure that you want to give us the authority to create more debt that you're responsible for. There's a number of other reasons. I'm not going to go into them, but other than just say that, I will certainly make a motion to approve, but I will be voting against this.
Well, I don't think we don't automatically go in debt by passing a home rule. The township can, of course, borrow more money. We discussed this quite a bit before it was on the ballot last year, and a lot of the things that the township can do. And Joe is right. In fact, ironically, when this first came to the board, I was moderately against it for a lot of the reasons that Joe said in terms of making our government bigger. But actually, at that meeting, Nick kind of brought it up, and then the more I started talking about it and discussing it, I talked myself into it, which tends to happen from time to time. Because the issues that it helps us to address are often issues people come up here to the podium and complain about, and we say, we're a township, we can't help you. Issues with noise, issues with street parking, issues with trucks on roads, issues on speed limits on township roads, issues that are important to the community. This last 7 months has opened our eyes up to other parts that home rule does. That is the ability to file a referendum. If the residents don't like something going on, they now have the ability to turn it over. They have the ability to bring things to the board if the community wants to see it happen. So I think it's a good balance. Yes, we have to pay for a law director, which could potentially save us money. But I think the pros certainly outweigh the cons. And then once again, this is simply putting it on the ballot. It's up for the residents to determine what they want. And I'm more inclined to believe than ever that everyone will be incredibly informed on what the issues are for any Butler Township issue come this November. So I'm also in favor of putting home rule back on.
Yeah, and just for historical perspective on this, one of the main reasons why we put it on the ballot last time is because of the truck traffic at P&G and how much those trucks were destroying our road. And we really have very, very limited ability to regulate that truck traffic. That is one of the main reasons why we put it on the ballot last time, but there are many other good reasons as well.
But in reality, you would not have been able to regulate that truck traffic. Those are all county roads.
Yeah, it's only, Jackson was the issue.
Yeah. I mean, right. So you'd have one road you could have regulated truck traffic.
Right, well, that's where our residents live.
The fact is, it costs more money, we're broke, and this is not the time to spend more money as far as I'm concerned. So.
Okay, entertain a motion.
I move to...
I'll make the motion.
You'll make the motion? Okay.
I make a motion that we approve Resolution 36, a resolution declaring it necessary to submit to the electorate the question of adopting limited home rule per the ORC.
I second.
Mr. Flanagan.
No.
Mr. Bresky.
Yes.
And I also vote yes. Resolution 1636 passes.
Okay, resolution 16-37. Resolution finding it necessary for approval of assessments to property owners for unpaid solid waste collection and disposal services.
Answer some of your questions, by the way.
We touched on this earlier. Currently, the outstanding delinquent accounts are $21,035.97. There are final notices going out for at the end of July, and these assessments are made on August 23rd. So there could be some adjustments there, but these are the estimates as of right now.
Okay. We have a motto about collecting, and it's you pay or you pay. There's no getting out of it.
Okay, any discussion for the board?
Do what?
Tax limits.
It goes on the assessment. It goes on their taxes.
This is to put it on their taxes.
Yeah, this is what
Yeah.
this motion does.
Yeah.
And then eventually, if that doesn't work, they'll be foreclosed on.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
All righty. I make a motion to approve Resolution 1637, a resolution finding it necessary for the approval of assessments to property owners for unpaid solid waste collection and disposal services.
I second.
Mr. Flanagan.
Yes.
Mr. Bresky.
Yes.
And I vote yes. Resolution 1637 is approved.
Okay. Resolution 1638, a resolution authorizing the Township Administrator to contract with Ohio Township Association Risk Management Authority, OTARMA, for the purchase of property and commercial general liability insurance for the Township. We received our renewal for our property and liability insurance this year. Our rates did increase, but there was a significant amount of inventory that we realized was not included on that insurance, so that is where that increase came from. But we will be receiving also a $2,841 reimbursement from OTARMA for being part of the pool. So that will kind of at least take care of half of that increase that we see for 2016.
And we're still paying less than the $56,000 we paid in 2012.
Yes.
And this is something we do every year. Any discussion?
I make a motion to approve Resolution 1638, a resolution authorizing the Township Administrator to enter into a contract with the Ohio Township Association Risk Management Authority, otherwise known as OTARMA.
I second.
And Mr. Flanagan.
Oh, yes.
Mr. Bresky.
Yes.
And I also vote yes. Resolution 1638 is approved.
Okay, Resolution 16-39, a resolution accepting the bids for the Willowbrook subdivision sidewalk, curb, apron, and ADA ramp repair program and awarding the bid to R.A. Miller Construction. This bid was advertised for the project on July 11th and July 18th. We opened bids on July 21st, and R.A. Miller, Adlita Construction, and L.J. DeWeese were the three contractors that bid on the project, and R.A. Miller was by far the lowest and best bid for the project. So requesting to award that bid to them, and the deadline for them to complete that project is October 31st.
And you want to explain the assessments as well?
Yes, as part of this project, and actually, the R.A. Miller was $220,664.78, and our engineer's estimate was around $226,000 for the project, so it did come in under budget. The sidewalks, the curb, and the aprons, all that repair work will be assessed back to the property owner, so they will be responsible for paying those, for those improvements. They can pay for them up front, or they can have them assessed on their taxes over a 1-year period or stretched out over 5 years. So they've been provided notices. We've had the public hearing and stuff on that, so that is where we're at with that.
Okay. Any discussion? Entertain a motion.
No, just one point. There's
Yes.
the difference between what we were talking about, assessed to the property owners, which was $170-some thousand, and now it's $220. That's because we have to pay for the ramps, correct? In that.
Yes, there's
Okay.
curb ramps as part of that project that
I
that
just,
the
if somebody
township
asked,
pays.
I just,
All the ADA ramps on the corners of the streets, the township pays for those, so.
okay. I make a motion to approve Resolution 1639, accepting the bids for Willowbrook subdivision sidewalk, curb, and apron ADA ramp repair program, and awarding the bid to R.A. Miller Construction.
I second.
Mr. Flanagan.
Yes.
Mr. Bresky.
Yes.
And I also vote yes. Resolution 16-39 is approved.
Okay, and next we need to set the public hearing for the zoning commission case number 16-02. These are amendments to Article 16, Office and Industrial Sales Service District, and Article 2, definitions of our zoning resolution. So this will just be setting the public hearing. We would like to set it for our next meeting on
August 22nd.
22nd at 7 p.m.
Okay.
All right, I make a motion to set the public hearing for case ZC, ZC 602 for August 22nd at 7 p.m. or soon thereafter, as the matter may be reached.
I second.
Mr. Flanagan?
Yes.
Mr. Brusky?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Date has been set. It's approved. Okay. Moving on to informal business. The Police Department, Chief Streck.
Yeah, on Tuesday, August 2nd, 2016 is National Night Out. That is a celebration for law enforcement. This year, once again, we will be holding it at the Singing Ridge Development that's located at 4,000 Singing Hills Boulevard. There'll be prizes there. There'll be things for the kids. We'll have equipment there and just a lot of activities. Everything that's going on in the nation concerning law enforcement, the Butler Township Police Department, the officers would love as much support as they could get and be able to spend a couple hours with you. And that is from 6 to 8 p.m., once again at 4,000 Singing Hills Boulevard.
Great.
Also, this is my last meeting, so I would like to thank the trustees. I'd like to thank Erica. When I came into this, as we all, most everyone in this room knows, it wasn't the ideal situation, and the township was unbelievably kind to me. Everywhere I went wearing this uniform with the controversies that were going on, whether it was the officers, whether it was the administration, it was everyone treated me with the utmost respect. I am very proud of the 7.5 months I've been here, and once again, in my life, and as I stay in my profession, this is going to be a very proud point in my life. So I just wanted to thank the township and, of course, the residents. I will say, as one of the main faces of this controversy, being out and about for the last 7.5 months, you people pay attention to what's going on. You read the newspapers, you watch the news, you care about your township. I will say, and I tell my officers this day in and day out since all this has went, it's going to take a good campaign of knocking on doors and things like that just to let the other people who aren't quite as informed as you all are know the stuff that's been talked about tonight and the importance of supporting your police department. So I just want to say thank you to all three, and Erica, thanks for putting up with me and a lot of
Well, no, I was going to say, I've known Rob for a long time, and he certainly, as we all know, thrust into a difficult, tenuous position. And as he's been out and about, it's not so much the uniform, but the man that embodies it that has helped us get through this period. We couldn't have asked for a higher caliber individual. And I know on behalf of all of us, on me, thank you for what you've done. We sincerely appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks. Actually, we will get you a street sign, because technically that's what happens. So there'll be a Chief Streck Way coming your way.
I want to say thank you, too, to Rob, because he's made this process seamless. The transition has been great for me as well, so I want to say thank you. It's been a good 6 months.
We appreciate
7 months.
And be the true politician, I would like to blame all of this on Rob.
Fire Department Chief Ayling.
I really have nothing to report except I'm going to miss Chief Streck for the point that I've enjoyed taking on him, and it's nice to have the pressure somewhere else. So anytime I come back to the staff meetings, come on. That's awesome. Thanks.
Fiscal Officer. Yeah, sure, why not? No.
Yeah.
He wants to know why the fire, because the short answer is everyone loves the firefighters, not so much the cops. When you open your door, you're happy to see a firefighter. When you open your door, cop may give you pause. So. Well, I think it's a conversation we can probably have once we get done with the meeting. He'd be glad to talk about it. We'll all be glad to talk to you about it, but I want to maintain the flow of what we do. So, all right, Fiscal Officer, Mr. Adams.
The only thing I would have is, once again, to express my thanks to the Budget Commission and how much I've enjoyed working with them.
Great. Trustees, Mr. Flanagan.
Okay, so for the last 6 months, we have had an interesting time here. During that time, I know you're not going to believe this, but I've actually learned a lot, and that's hard for a guy that thinks he knows everything. But one of the things that you said was give us the opportunity to prove you wrong. And what I'm hoping is you truly can prove me wrong. I really hope the township steps up and do what needs to be done to fund the police department. This will be probably one of the only times in my life that after the November election, should it pass, I will be so happy to eat crow. And hopefully it'll be the only time in the rest of my life that I do. So I am just encouraging all of you to talk up the levy, get out and work on the levy. I think at the next time we should have a sign-up sheet for people who want to help go door to door. I mean, this is going to be a real effort. It doesn't just happen. As the gentleman over there said, we need to get the information out. It needs to be explained to people. But the problem is people do not read the stuff you send them. You have to go knock on the door. You have to tell them what it says, and you have to do it more than once. And that's what we're going to need to do. We're also going to need some money, so bring your checkbooks next time.
Okay. Mr.
Anyway,
Russ.
thanks to all of you.
Erica, just one item, and I would like you to start reviewing what the cost would be to update our website, to just do a thorough review of updating our website to a new look, and also making it friendly so that we can put minutes on there, not just approved minutes, but draft minutes. I think that we need to do that. I think the draft minutes should probably have a watermark that indicates that they're not approved. And, one of the first things when I became a member of this board is I advocated for publishing our meetings, publishing the video of our meetings. I actually advocated for putting them on the cable access channel. I think a lot of people don't watch the cable access channel anymore, and putting them online is the best route to get them out to everybody. Until we get our website updated, I think you ought to just open up a YouTube channel for the township, and I think the raw video should go up. It's a public record anyway. I don't think there's a need to edit. I know there were some people that wanted to do editing. I don't think there's a need to edit. I think we should just have a township YouTube channel, put the raw video up, and with the technology, I mean, with this the iPhone success and everything, maybe it might be beneficial to have other videos that the township puts up from time to time to inform the public about what we're doing just within our departments as well. So.
Actually, interesting Nick brought that up. One thing I think we do and we are sorely lacking on is information about tax levies on our own website. I think Washington Township's got a great example. I mean, they go through not only what the levies are, but how to calculate it yourself, resources, information. Ours is, I'm embarrassed to say, devoid of that. So that's something else we need to remedy, especially for new residents. They want to know what their taxes are going to be. That's pretty important. So we'll make sure that information is on there as well.
And I think it needs to be optimized for mobile devices.
We talked about that about 6-7 months ago, and that's going to be a whole rework of the website. So make them down to this. But yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Chief Ailig and I have had discussions about this too, and it was something we talked about doing, some updates on that.
Because I think that website dates back to when you were administrator.
Well, it's been revised.
It's 2008. It's a WordPress, but it served us really well. But
yeah, I think it would be good to have a whole page dedicated to the tax levy information.
Okay. Anything else, Nick?
No,
only I've got is that I was proud to represent the Township Polk Grove Church at Frederick and 40 celebrated their bicentennial on Saturday. Amazingly enough, also St. Paul's at Dogleg in Little York celebrates their bicentennial this weekend. So both of those churches in the township actually predate the township by a year. And of course, Vandalia showed up to give a proclamation for one day, and we made ours for the whole weekend, so they were quite pleased. So. I've got nothing else. Administrator, Ms. Vogel.
Just one thing, we received 4 very qualified applications for the chief position, so we are beginning interviews on August 1st for the chief. And then also Cruise into Butler Township is going to be held on August 13th, and that is on Commerce Center in front of Walmart. So come out from 10 to 2 on August 13th. And that's all I have.
Okay.
If you'll allow me to indulge, I knew I was forgetting something. There's one thing I do want to add is we had a block party in my neighborhood, North Lake Court, which is a cul-de-sac in Imperial Hills, and Oakhurst Place. We did a joint block party. It was a great thing to have the community come out. I want to encourage, township residents to do it. It was very easy. They pretty much contacted the police department, and they blocked off the street, especially if you have a cul-de-sac in a neighborhood and you have a couple streets. And I think in 2017 will be our bicentennial. And maybe a great way to celebrate our bicentennial is to have block parties throughout the township.
On your street?
Of course on my street.
Okay.
And
we
we'll
do
have
have
Mike do the cooking.
There you go. We did an executive session. I'll go ahead and we had to add an item on with Chief Streck's departure, so I'll go ahead and make the motion for that. That works for you guys. Need to enter executive session to discuss an economic development issue as well as a personnel matter involving the police department.
Contract negotiation, sorry.
Oh, we are discussing that?
Yeah, non-economic development.
Oh, we removed economic development.
Yes.
Gotcha. Sorry. All right, let me rephrase that. We'd like to enter executive session to discuss contract negotiations with the administration department as well as personnel matter involving the police department. Entertain a second.
Oh, second. Beat you. Say yes.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Flanagan?
Yes.
Mr. Browski?
Yes.
Mr. Lang?
Yes. We'll enter an executive session at 8:41 p.m. Thanks, everybody, for coming so far. We shouldn't be too long